I have been in the midst of an existential crisis. For almost 5 years, I've been doing a podcast called Therapy Gecko, where I dress up as a gecko and talk to strangers on the phone about life. I've toured all over the world doing this show and talking to people, and it's been a really cool and wild adventure. But when I got back from my most recent tour, I started feeling kind of antsy. I've gotten to have a lot of really great and meaningful experiences throughout my life, but I still remain preoccupied with thoughts of death and the overall meaninglessness of existence itself. I've talked about it so much on my podcast that this guy, dbanda123, said in the comments section of my Spotify page that I am probably depressed, and I think he's right. I've been thinking a lot about how to cure my depression, and then I realized that you actually can't cure depression by thinking. You have to actually do something, because thinking is what got me depressed in the first place. So thinking about how to cure my depression would be like trying to fix a broken leg by smashing it with a rock. So I decided to do two things: go for a long walk somewhere and make a little video journal about whatever happens. Quick backstory. 2 years ago, I went to Tokyo, Japan to live stream myself walking around as a gecko and talking to people. I was in the Asakusa area when I saw a message in my chat from this guy, Sensei Martian, asking if he could come to where I was streaming to take a picture with me. We walked around and we chatted for a while, and he told me his story of moving to Japan by himself 7 years ago and how he figured out his life from there, which I felt very inspired by. 2 years pass, and Sensei Martian calls me on my podcast a few months ago and tells me that in the time since we first met, he walked about 2,000 miles from the very bottom of Japan all the way to the very top.
I wanted to change my life, and so I read a book about a guy who walked across Japan and thought, I want to do that. So I just got back from walking across Japan.
And so, inspired by both Sensei Martian and horrible existential dread, I connected with the sensei on Instagram, and I flew out to Japan to join him on a 45-mile walk across a section of the Nakasendo Trail in the hopes that maybe I can escape from my own brain. It was very sunny on my walk to the station from my hotel. I always feel much better in the mornings when the day is fresh and I'm on my way to actually do something instead of sleeping in or eating candy or jerking off. My existential dread is nowhere to be found in this moment. I met up with Sensei Martian, whose real name is Jason, and we took a train to our starting point in Narajuku. I was feeling so great on the train ride over that a Gary Vee video came up on my Instagram feed, and I thought to myself, you know what, Gary, I don't need you today. We eventually arrived at our starting point for the hike, and we were walking through this very cool rural Japanese town. But I realized that even though walking through a cool rural Japanese town is doing something, it also gave me time to think. And I realized that a lot of this walk would actually give me time to think, which is bad. So my existential depression started to creep back in. I sat with it for a bit, and I realized that getting over these negative thoughts wasn't going to be as easy as simply just changing my location. I would have to continuously decide over and over again to be confidently in the present. We had dinner at this traditional style inn, and I bit the head off of a fish. I felt a little grim thinking about how me and this dead fish ultimately have the same fate. But I'm still not gonna go vegan or anything because the fish was really good. Dinner was over around 7 p.m., and because it wouldn't be socially acceptable to go to sleep until about 10 p.m., I was worried this would give me 3 whole hours to spiral and go on Reddit. So instead, I took my shirt off and did 20 push-ups, and I also did a little dance. I still scrolled Reddit afterwards, but at least I felt a tiny bit better while doing it. In the morning, I tried to come up with some deep thoughts to write for this video before beginning the first day of the walk, but my only thought was, it is the morning and I really have to pee. Going to the bathroom is good because it gets you out of your head. This was the first official day of our 50-mile walk. And when we started walking, I immediately felt that same sense of joy that I had yesterday morning when I was walking to the station, and my existential dread was again nowhere to be found in this moment. It was also snowing out for a lot of the time that we were walking, and walking through the snow made it feel like I was in the opening of Red Dead Redemption 2, which is a really good game. Even if it does scare me to think about the limited amount of time that I have on this earth, I'm feeling really great about how I'm choosing to spend it right now. As we walked, I reflected on this weird dichotomy of my life of how I've spent truly countless hours looking at porn and getting really high and scrolling on my phone and playing video games and just kind of doing nothing in my room. But I've also gotten to do a lot of cool stuff like this in addition to that. And it's interesting to me that life ends up having time for both. The rest of the day was very good. We saw snow monkeys. Look at all these, so many monkeys. Look at him patiently waiting to cross the... Oh, no, he's not waiting patiently at all. He's just running. We saw a cool ramen spot and thought about going in, but did not. Later, we went to a 7-Eleven down the road, and I got a protein milk. Japanese 7-Eleven is awesome. I also saw an anthropomorphic mountain character. Walking long distances is interesting because I kind of zone out for a while and get lost either in my own head or in my surroundings. And after many miles, I will regain consciousness and go, oh, my body has traveled. We walked in total for about 6 hours that day until we got to our next hotel, and it ended up being about 35,000 steps. Jason left the room for a little bit because he told me he wanted to get a Pepsi from the vending machine and listen to a Duran Duran song in the lobby. I deeply respected how specific his vision was for his life in that moment. While he was gone, I journaled on my phone for a little bit. I wrote about everything it took for me to be in this moment right now. I was dressing up as a gecko in my mom's basement, and now, 5 years later, I'm walking through rural Japan with someone I randomly met on the street. Even more than that, I thought about how various atoms of the universe had to combine at certain times to even make it so that both me and Jason are alive in this very moment. And all of the monotony of life choices of not just us, but our parents and our parents' parents and so on that had to happen for us to have met and been here together. Although I took this trip to escape my existentialism, I actually felt very existential thinking about all of this, but in a way that made me feel awe instead of dread. That night, I had a dream that I was playing Donkey Kong Country Returns with Kendrick Lamar, and I don't know what that meant. In the morning, my back was hurting, so I did some stretches, which I probably should have done last time. As we left the hotel and started walking, I once again felt very powerful. I keep having this recurring cycle where I spiral with negative thoughts in the evenings and early mornings, but then I feel euphoric after I drink coffee and start walking. This makes me wonder if I will ever find some sense of emotional stability. It's interesting because although the reality of my life and the world itself does not really change at all from last night to this morning, my brain and my perceptions towards reality change significantly. So does this mean that all of my spiraling and negative thought loops are actually in my own control? And if they are, how the fuck do I control them? I walked by this tunnel with a sign that said, "Do not go into the darkness." And I think I need to put a metaphorical sign like that up in my brain as well. And it'll be up to me whether I ignore it or not. One of the big life lessons I find myself having to learn over and over again is that life really is a matter of perspective. You can find a rainbow in a beautiful waterfall or in mud. My family back home were asking me what my favorite part of Japan has been so far, And it's funny because my favorite part of this walk wasn't really the scenery or the food or the history. It was really just having a linear challenge to accomplish. I probably could have also done that by doing a 1,000-piece puzzle alone in my house, but this was more cool. We arrived at our hotel for the night, which was another traditional ryokan, and as it got dark and the walking stopped, I started to spiral pretty hard again. But as I was being emotional and existential, I was also realizing again just how special it was to be here on this walk with Jason. And there's a weird perspective thing where when you're in the moment of something, you can't really appreciate it as much as you want to because you're so close to it. And you only get to fully take it in once it's over. This is how I felt about all of the tours I went on as the therapy gecko, and also how I'm feeling as I'm editing this video right now and watching all the footage back. Sometimes I wish I wasn't so fucking sentimental all the time, because I think it would make my life feel less intense to me, and I could just be calm and chill and not always pressuring myself to make the most of my life. But ultimately, I've just got to make peace with this being the way I am. Today, I decided to really try and be in the moment as we walked. So I set a timer on my phone to not think about death for 10 minutes. I saw a dog and a cat and a bunch of cigarettes. I found a Pokemon card on the ground. I saw this funny sign. I saw a party store and an anthropomorphic trash can. I watched water flow through rocks. I saw a cool rock and decided to touch it. Someone left their hat here. Maybe they died. Restart the timer. I noticed Jason's hat had an effect on his shadow that made it look like he was a guy with a giant head, like the Jack-in-the-Box guy. So I imagined I was walking with a guy with a giant head. I saw E.T. Gachapon. Jason pointed out that this tree was over 300 years old. I wondered if it was tired. My thoughts started to drift a bit, and I thought about what the hell I was going to do with myself when I got back from Japan, that I'm getting older and I'll never get that time back. And then I slipped on this patch of ice and it brought me back to the present. Thank you, ice. I Naruto ran down the road and then laid on my back in the sun. It was nice. The light shining on this village was so beautiful. I saw a water wheel and I took in the scenery. Before I knew it, it had been well over 10 minutes, and I was successfully able to spend at least a good chunk of the day grounded in reality instead of in my head. At night in our hotel, I saw this smoking room with a Bob Marley poster and one single chair. Hello, I am back in New York, recording this 2 months after finishing the walk. We did finish the full 50 miles, and I said goodbye to Jason and returned back home to America. I wish I could end this video by telling you that my existential crisis was cured by just going on one trip to Japan, but of course that is not the case. However, on a positive note, I can say that through going on this walk and making this video, I learned that my depression and existential dread tends to go away when I am in the moment of doing stuff and in my actual life and out of my head. And I hope you can use that information too, whoever's watching this video, to, encourage you to also do stuff that gets you to be out of your head and not thinking crazy thoughts all the time, and be in your life. I hope you can figure out whatever thing that is for you. Also, please follow my boy Sensei Martian on Twitch, because I could not have done this walk without him, and he does a lot of really cool live streams around Japan. Thank you for listening to me rant and watching me go on this trip, and I will return with more YouTube videos of me doing stuff, either as a gecko or a human, that is gets me out of my head. Thank you.